Hello and welcome to Chess69, in which we take a light-hearted look at the world of chess. Having done quite well, very well really, with the last magazine comparisons I did, I thought we'd go back and do that, but with the more up-to-date magazines. One of these only arrived yesterday, in fact, and I'm going to start with this gentleman on the cover, Robert James Fischer. If you want to subscribe to this or any of the others, Google them, and the latest subscription rates will come to you, and that's rather nice. So let's see what we get here. There's an article by the editor about the Fischer-Spassky match, and since this issue is largely retrospective, you do get a lot of stuff about Reykjavik 72. Here are the guys. Fischer and Spassky, of course. I rather approve of this, and they take a fresh look. Even a picture of Richard Milhouse Nixon, Tricky Dicky, saying, "Hi, it's real nice to be impeached here in the Whitewash House." 50 years since Fischer took the chess crown by Pete Tamburo. For those too young to remember, think of the public attention captured by the Queen's Gambit series, then multiplied by 1,000. He is, of course, correct. He is, of course, correct. Here's the Los Angeles Times. When was the last time you saw chess in the headline? And not for a bad reason. I think that's one of the most important things. People getting excited because Carlsen has defaulted some games, or somebody has been found dead, or pissed or something. But Fischer played the better chess. He beat Spassky fair and square. And Boris knew this. Anyway, here is a comparison by Kolovich, the Grandmaster, talking about an analysis. I didn't mean to say comparison. The openings employed. Quite fun, and things I remember and things I don't, because I was only a child when the match took place. But nevertheless, I did look into it then, and subsequently, of course, I've done what I can. He's talking about the Sozin, Bishop c4. Served Fischer so well throughout his career, but the Soviet camp wasn't wasting its time. Fischer has always been absolutely convinced in his preparation, and he confidently repeated the Sozin, but Spassky played a line that is considered one of the best today. This is 2021. Game 8. He repeated playing the English. I think when Fischer played 1c4, what he was trying to do was bring about some transposition, as opposed to staking a claim for a newfound system. Please let me know if you think I'm wrong. Bobby, if you're listening. Mixed Emotions, an article by Peter O'Brien. You may remember I mentioned Peter before. He did an article about chess in Spain, Spanish chess, so to speak. Well, here we are again, with him talking about Spassky. As Ray Keane has pointed out in these pages, Fischer more or less ceased to exist as an active chess player. Yes, he did. After winning at Reykjavik 72, he quite correctly, even though I don't think anybody knew quite what was happening, he didn't play again until 92, when he played Spassky all over again in a, lackluster venue. Here's an article which I didn't particularly agree with by Ian Watson about Robert Byrne. And he's talking about Fischer's clashes with him and with Robert Byrne's brother, Donald, who was to die young. Interesting player, Robert Byrne. Interesting player. There's an article about the Olympiad here, in case we've all forgotten about it. It was utterly amazing, the World Team Championships, which were organised at comparatively short notice by FIDE in India. The 44th Olympiad in Chennai. The future is here. My goodness, there were some players who emerged who we'd either not heard of before or would be frightened of facing again. My goodness, it was as impressive as it was surprising. Shocking, I think, is the word. There's the Uzbek team, blazers and concentrated. They're obviously concentrating very hard. They give some games. Carlson, asleep. Look at the interest, huge interest of Indian media made it a bit difficult for players. A bit difficult, it looks like the feeding of the 5,000. There we are. And there's the playing hall. Whether that's the playing hall or not, I don't know. Looks like I was going to say a rugby scrum, but there's only 15 players in each team. I think there's 150 players there. So, some statistics. The open section, in case you're wondering. Uzbekistan won it with Armenia, India 2, India, United States of America, and Moldova following. This was a tournament which the Russians were precluded from participating because of the war. Although I'm not supposed to use that word, perhaps I am, in Ukraine. This is the women's event, and the winners were the Ukraine, as in the Eurovision Song Contest. So there we are. Or maybe they came second, I can't remember. Actually, the parallel between the Chess Olympiad and the Eurovision Song Contest is absolutely non-existent. An article about Mr. David Howe. There he is. David lives a little on his nerves, I think, but they're concentrating very well. He's also made a name for himself, a considerable name for himself, as commentator. And we wish him well in all these aspects. Ukraine victorious in the women's event. Let's show the young ladies. They all, to my unseeing eye, very young. There they are. Presumably that's the captain on the end, in case he sneaked into the ladies' team. In the women's event, the undefeated Ukraine team won their second Olympiad after 2006. Undefeated certainly has more than one meaning in the current global context and has a special dimension to the Ukrainian efforts. Well, maybe I don't agree with that. I mean, chess is a board game. It's not, it's an artificial world, and it's not very important compared to the players there. Don't think that, but it's not very important. There's an article about the British Championships, which I'll not dwell on, other than to say that the games are annotated quite lightly by Sean Talbot. And here's a picture of the new British champion, Mr. Harry Grieve, who is a mathematician at Cambridge. I hope to goodness, having said that, I'm right, but I think he's a second-year student. Well, he would be now going into third year, maybe. Game by Nick Pert against Keith Arkle. And this is the Keres system with 2 bishop b4 check, about which Keith never really likes to follow the book. He's sort of, in a way, well, he has quite literally written his own book, hasn't he? Just having a little coffee here. Yes, he's written his own book. Keith, like Andrew Martin, is a sort of hero of some people's. I richly approve. I know somebody many years ago said if you want to become better at chess, you should choose a hero and take over all their openings and follow their adventures, because you can't do that with everybody. So just choose somebody good. Here is the result. Here are the results of last year's, well, the last British Championship, which I just mentioned at Torquay. And Mark Hebden has managed to come twice in the cross table. He finished 16th equal and also 25th. I'm pulling Mark's leg about this, or rather, I'm pulling the Milan's leg about this, the editor. But they put together all the statistics rather nicely. Here's an advert for BCM, which I'll be coming on to later. Here's an interesting thing. Edinburgh Bicentenary Tournament, celebrating one of the oldest chess clubs in the world. It was a tournament held in Scotland, of course, and the tournament and the club was founded in 1822, so it's the centenary. With the winner this time, Hamish Olsen, about whom I'm dreadfully ignorant. I know absolutely nothing. But well, one good reason to getting BCM is to learn stuff, isn't it? So I'm not going to apologise. Yes, he won the tournament with 6.5 out of 9, ahead of Angus Dunnington and Andrew Burnett and Neil Berry. So these are not household names, but they are. It was a tough tournament, and also in this tournament was the prodigy Freddie Gordon, who, despite being the lowest rated, actually beat the winner. That's interesting. Here's an article by Raymond Keane, Grandmaster Raymond Keane, OBE, about G6. This was one of Ray's The Modern Defense, which he used to write 2 books on, with George Botterill. And he talks about his findings, not just the old ones, but also some of the newer ones. Then in round 8 came another brilliancy, this time a double exchange sacrifice against Ligterink. But that's another story for another day. I remember I was in the audience for that game, and Ray was followed into the gents, of all places, not by me. I'm not about to say anything unpleasant. And he said, I've got a win, he said, but I can't yet prove it. And it's a very interesting comment that he hadn't, maybe his inclinations and his feelings were towards the fact that it was a one game, but it wasn't yet a one position. He had to play and work very hard to cement the win. And I think of all the games I've ever seen of Ray's, it remains, I'm totally biased because I was there at the time, it remains one of my favorites. Some of these notes he's put here are probably pretty old ones. He mentions his game against Unzicker, which I didn't know. He mentions Van der Sterren's game against his brother-in-law, David Goodman, which I did know, which was from the Phillips and Drew Knights, which was the event which was run alongside Phillips and Drew Kings. Ray wasn't in either, but nevertheless, it's nice to see it mentioned, and I'm sure he would have done his best. Something about Fisher's Endgames here, and the Endgame Studies section by Ian Watson. I.R. Watson, you may know him as leading Kent player. He's also done a lot for chess in other directions, to say the least. Chess for Amateurs by Pete Tamburo. I admit I'm totally biased because I am a very dear friend to Pete. Bobby playing Tigran Petrosian in 1971. There they are. It was probably the best move ever that Fischer and the retinue of Americans around him managed to get a Soviet grandmaster to come across the pond at all. And they played in Buenos Aires, as did Capablanca and Alicante in 1927. So, it was, although Petrosian lost, he managed to equal the score after 5 games. And the game he did win the games he did win were it was a really good match. I mean, I think that a shorter match suited Fischer better, and I don't think, as Spassky might have done at the end of Reykjavik, that Petrosian would have complained about Bobby. He just wasn't good enough to hold him. Problem World with Christopher Jones. Very conscientious gentleman and a grandmaster in his sphere, his chosen sphere. And I think that's it. Yes, some solutions and an advert at the back. Quite creative. I haven't seen that one before. Talking about how you can get BCM printed or the electronic version, or even both if you're feeling keen. So there we are. The next magazine I'm going to look at is Chess. It's simply called Chess. You might hear it called Chess Magazine or something, and there it is. And on the cover, Grandmaster, England's finest, David Howell. New in Chess advert, some subscription rates, which, as I always say, I will not read to you, but just Google the magazine and have a look. The editorial by Malcolm Payne, executive editor. It is clear from the outset that the youthful team would have an advantage because of the grueling nature of the 11-round event. 11 rounds isn't really that grueling. I mean, one of the problems which the Olympiad now has is that they've reduced the number of players in each team from 6 to 5. This was in order to make it cheaper for people to travel, which indeed it is. Of course it is. It couldn't not be, could it? But nevertheless, I can't help thinking that for a team to win, 6 players is better than 5 because you can spread the games out and spend a bit of time, preparing tactics and things. I remember Bill Hartston at IFA 76 maybe, said he didn't want to play against Timman, that he always did badly against him. By that time, Timman was building up to become one of the strongest players in the world, and one of the top 20 of the 20th century, if you like. And Bill wasn't, so although he was a highly competent technical player, of course. So that's an example. In the end, Bill said, well, he wasn't going to play against Argentina, only to find that he was slated to play against Najdorf. So he played a short game against Najdorf and said a word which Bill was rather good at uttering. Would you like a draw? They had a draw. Here's David again, looking nearly as serious, I won't compare it, as he did before, in the distinctive livery of the English chess team. More about the Olympiad, which is nice, which is very nice. It's lovely to see so many teams at one time, when the Olympiad was set up in about forgive me, I can't remember the exact year, in the 1920s. But now it really is thriving and is an excellent barometer to show how popular worldwide chess is. Enormous advert for Quality Chess, based up in Scotland, as they are. They've got some new books out, one by Mickey Adams, which is rather advanced. One about Korchnai's grandchildren, figuratively speaking. Here's Terry Chapman, the well-known millionaire, and his new lady. There. I'm going to put the light on now. There we are. I'm back with the Chapmans and some. It's interesting because when I was doing a magazine myself, I used to put results in and people say, oh, no, we don't want those because they'll be out of date soon and we can get them online. Well, you can get them online, but I also think it's nice to put them in the magazine, particularly if it's properly put together accurately and topical. So here are all the prize winners in the British Championship down in Torquay, which I went to, as I said before. And there's a picture of Gary Lane looking studious. And as I say, Terry Chapman with his bride-to-be. This is something which BCM used to do, but doesn't now, but originated about 70 years ago in chess, which is how good is your chess? It used to be done by, say, someone like Leonard Barden. John Littlewood has done stuff in BCM. But Daniel King has stuck to this pretty rigidly over the last sort of 30-odd years. And he's talking this month about the Kalashnikov. And I never know the difference, even though till I'm blue in the face or even white and lined in the face, the difference between the Kalashnikov and the Pelican. In terms of moves, I know it's different. Kalashnikov is, of course, a name of a rifle, isn't it? And Pelican is the name of a South American grandmaster, or maybe just master. Here we are, Paul Littlewood, talking about how to beat a grandmaster. Paul largely retired from chess now, and from the great family, some of whom sadly are no longer with us, of Littlewoods. So there he is. This is by an article by Stephen Moss, who doesn't know how lucky he is because Adam Ralph was very kind. Adam Ralph is frequently kind to me. Good job, somebody is. Adam Ralph and I went to see Stephen Moss in The Guardian, at The Guardian, which was very exciting in itself. Well, we didn't get to see him. He wasn't there, and he didn't know we were coming anyway. We left a message. Anyway, there's a long article here by Stephen Moss, who wrote the book Rookie, I think it's called. And he analyzes a game between Mike Healy and Peter Large. Peter Large has been out of chess for a very, very long time, and it's nice to see him back. And there's also a game by young lady Zoe Marnie. There's a photograph of somebody. Here's Mike Healy, who appears to be wearing a headband. Whether in fact that's because he's perhaps playing tennis or something, I don't know. There he is. There's an interview. When I was doing the magazine, not this one, I made up questions for those people being interviewed. But in this one, it's called the 60-second interview. And they ask the same questions every time, no matter who they're quizzing. This is about woman international master Gaal, Gaal, Zuka Gaal. She is Hungarian, it says, and she was born in 2007. I didn't think 2007 even happened yet. No disrespect to the young lady. I'm a high school private student who would like to become a professional chess player, and a proud Perling ambassador. Perling are a London company who do artistic chess sets. They also organise, I gather they're probably pretty good, little soirees in the morning. No, in the evening. And I do occasionally get invited to these, but I haven't gone to them, and I'm not a London person. So since COVID, I have to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous of going up to London. Shouldn't be, but I am. She's asked, what's your favourite game of all time? And she says, to my surprise, Karpov Unziker from Nice, 1974. Karpov really was in the ascendant then, preparing over his shoulder, I have little doubt, for a match against Bobby, which of course didn't happen. And this is where Unziker said, one is permitted to lose the Karpov with black. Well, she has asked, can chess make one happy? And she says, of course, it's a very exciting sport. Well, perhaps if you play it well, it is. Find the winning moves. This is interesting because when we did the magazine, as I was going to have to keep on saying, not this one, I said to John Upham, who did them very well. The solutions section looks a bit dreary, like a sort of timetable or something. But here they have no holds barred, and this has been the case for many years. They give, about 40 positions, which is lovely. A long article about my friend Adam Raff, and there he is, looking reflective, reading something, I think, on his phone, with a beautiful trophy at the back. Please start White's clock. Arbiters are unsung heroes who enable us to enjoy our chess. Ben Graff, this is Ben Graff, who also wrote chess novel, which he sent to me, which I had the audacity not to review because, to be honest, I didn't really like it. Checks with Alex Holdovic and Adam Raff, I said that. Anyway, there we go. This is by Steve Firth, and it's a blindfold game on the internet, played blitz game. Such needless generosity led to positions with me being on the receiving end of moves with no thought, which soon became, in my mind at least, positions with no structure. Well, that's quite a profound statement, isn't it? Such needless generosity led to positions, in other words, positions in blitz chess, online chess, receiving end of moves with no thought, which became, in my mind at least, positions with no structure. Well, I think that gives us food for thought, doesn't it? Humans proved far more blindfold friendly than bots. In other words, machine. Yes, playing people online meant I was giving them the advantage of sight of the board, but he didn't care. He's playing blindfold in this game. But I didn't care. My blindfold blunders have been many and varied. Well, that's forgivable. Lots of have been elementary, and I'm sorry that so many of my opponents have had to put up with me leaving pieces on praise, capturing a heavily protected pawn in exchange for whatever piece I've been giving away. He hasn't done that in that time. Or, worse still, putting my queen on a square where a simple pawn take lady ends the game. I didn't do it on purpose. Honest. And that is Mr. Firth, Steve Firth. Again, a name I must look out for again. This is called A Little Boydie Just Told Me, and it is some tweets and emails from about 10 people, including Nigel Short. FIDE charter by a single word was passed successfully. It will mean that prospective federations from the Cook Islands, oh, well, that's very important, the Cook Islands and American Samoa are entitled to join the governing body of chess. Okay. More about blindfold play. And here is Magnus Carlsen having a game of Blindman's Buff. That was auditioning to be the Joker. The Riddler. The latest Batman. I really enjoyed the latest Batman. When they sort of revived it, I was very enthusiastic about it, but I soon got disillusioned, I think is the word. Here we are, Mr. Brandon Clark, one of our new IMs, quite new anyway, explaining a line in the Dragon where you play not as a preventative measure, but in anger, h5. I'm sure that this has been on the cards for a while. I don't mean to appear cocky. I don't know anything about the Dragon, not really. I simply know what it is, and that's a good start. But this is he calls this the Hungarian Dragon, and there we are. And there's a book about it apparently up here. So when you get chess, if you've got chess already, it is on page 36, and there's quite a few examples of it being played. The Dragon is never dull. Big advert for Thinkers Press, and back to the Bundesliga, an article either by or about Willie Watson. William was one of the players from St Paul's School and Richmond Chess Club. He didn't give up chess, but he has shunted it to one side as he became a legal eagle, and now he's gone back to it. I imagine what will happen, has happened with many people, is they return hoping it's sort of more or less the same, and then they realise it's not, and time has moved on. An article by Carl Portman, who I met once very briefly, about Polagevsky, who came to stay with him. Here is a very, very nice, amusing, I suppose you could say, cartoon of Lev Polagevsky, and there is Carl Portman next to Polagevsky's grave. Polagevsky died in France. An understandable somber Carl pictured on a visit to Montparnasse Cemetery along the final resting place of the great Lev Polagevsky. Note how Sicilian love is depicted on the tomb. Sicilian love was Polagevsky's last book. I think it came out in 2 volumes. And there was also a thematic tournament dedicated, he wasn't able to play himself, dedicated to Grandmaster Polagevsky, who was extremely strong Russian Grandmaster. Here's an article about Eddie Price, about whom he played Irva in 1955 in a simul, and he won. So this is obviously one of those articles which they may have kept in abeyance for the moment, until such time as there was space, and there was. I like that sort of thing. Enormous amount of text here in 3 columns. I don't know whether it should be broken up with more photographs, embellishments, or little bits of text. Sort of BCM does this, and taken out and slapped up as if it's a sort of headline, which it frequently isn't. I don't know. Overseas news, yes, this always gets to me because I always like to see it, and I was one of possibly the person who reintroduced it, and there it is. A picture of Luke McShane looking some detachment. Across table, the tournament in Dortmund, a town, a city that has a very great chess tradition. Picture of a couple of guys. Shabalov, an extremely strong player, winner of 4 US championship titles. You try arguing with that. The controversial Mr. Chennai, Alexander Chennai. And here's Ravi Haria, one of Britain's youngest grandmasters, and most recent grandmasters. I think I'm right in saying there he is. He looks proud and concentrated. But it may just be really that it's like being photographed. I know when I used to go around with my camera thinking, gosh, it's like I'm giving out £5 notes. And I didn't ask anyone's permission to take them. Anyway, there we are. This is called The Chess Tournament That Must Not Be Mentioned. And it is by Jeff Chandler, a gentleman whose work I know extremely well, and lives up in Scotland, I think, and is, like me, a funny man in his opinion, and also in mine. Some book reviews by Sean Marsh, I think, very detailed. This is one of the things I like to do. For some time, Chessable resists the urge to mount an assault on the world of printed chess literature. Chessable courses are popular. Their place at the top of the commercial world apparently secure, despite significant recent changes in the company. Now, you see, I wouldn't have known that, and I don't quite know what he's referring to. But what I do know is look at the detail he goes into. You have to hand it to him. And I'm sure that the publishers who hand to him free books know what they're doing. Look at that. So if you were considering buying a book, or even as I do, you've got the book already, but you want it sort of boiled down, rather like kale in well, not exactly like kale. Well, like spinach, really, in a saucepan. Why are we talking about this? Anyway, here we have various other books, and my favorite book of the year, The Mammoth Book of Chess by Graham Burgess. If you got this book or saw this book in earlier editions, I would still urge you very, very strongly to look at the most recent offering. Now, it's nice to see this back. Forthcoming events, it's a calendar of tournaments, including the Hendon Blitz and the 27th of September, the Muswell Hill Rapid Play. So if you want, if you're near Muswell Hill or you want to go there, it's on the 27th. So that's in a couple of days' time. And then also the Northumberland Congress in North Shields, for example. I mean, there's lots of others, but nevertheless. And at the back, an article by the deputy editor, Mr. John Saunders. There he is, smiling. And there's the game, and there's another advert. And if you subscribe to this magazine, and I strongly recommend you do, you can receive discounts on books. And you can also receive 10% discount if you go to the shop. And remember, as I sometimes didn't, to ask for it. Right, the last magazine I'm going to look at. Now, what do you think is wrong with this cover? What do you think I'm going to say? Do you think I'm going to say it's too crowded? Well, I could say that. See, the barcode looks nice and small. But there's one thing fundamentally wrong, and that is it doesn't show any chess pieces. Actually, there is a knight there. But basically, it does say the word chess twice. But I'm sorry, it should show a chess board and some chess pieces, because a lot of people looking at this aren't chess obsessed. Most people aren't like me. And so therefore, God for that. And so that, who said that? And so that's rather good. I'll go this side as well. So therefore, looking at this, their first thought is, well, what is it then? It's a book about America, is it, or something? And who's this guy? Well, a good reason to buy this magazine is to look very carefully at it, because it's very good. Of course, it's good. An advert, probably the same one as we saw in the other magazines. A list of contributors: Pete Tambura, Alex Fishbein, Carsten Hansen. A very detailed editorial by Mr. Krunich. In addition to the above, summer of 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of the iconic World Championship match played in Reykjavik between Boris Spassky and Robert James Fischer. Well, I think he should promote Robert James Fischer to the appellation Bobby. And there's all sorts of stuff, including the intervention of the financier, Jim Slater. Come and get it, chicken. Slater doubled the purse. There's Lombardi, Anthony Sadie, Dr. Schmidt, who's the ref. My God, did he have a job? Dr. Erver presenting the medal to Bobby. He said something like grateful, like it's a bit small, isn't it? Only Fischer would have not thought to have said that, but thought that it was okay to say that. It's a little ditty by Jimmy Adams, the Bobby Fischer story. I'm not sure that, having seen Jimmy's poem in full, I'm not sure I recognize these verses. It may have been tweaked. What Bobby wants, Bobby gets. Conditions take precedent over TV sets. Too bad about the lawsuit with Chester Fox. Bobby can't concentrate while they film for the box. A protest default showed he was sincere, so those movie men just had to clear. With prose like that, who needs Seamus Heaney or even Shakespeare? 2 crucial wins by Grandmaster Molnar, Mackenzie Molnar, and they are from Reykjavik 72. So they don't overdo it, do they? But they do cover it. Bobby on the cover of various magazines. There we are. He did end up in a mess, I know, but they're very much the urbane and already internationally travelled Grandmaster. I'm plucking up the courage to say Suranas Skulskis, who is annotating here 3 recent games. Before I get to the creme de la creme, yet again I take the liberty of offering you one of my own games. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I hope you agree with me then. It said it's a 9-time champion of Lithuania and a regular member of the country's national team. I didn't know that. Nepo again, so winning the candidates tournament, which this time took place without the intervention of COVID. He scored a very, very impressive 9.5 out of 14. He was undefeated, and one of the players he beat 2-0. I'm messing about with that. Annotated games, coloured photographs. Yes, this bloke is omnipresent at these gatherings. See that? That's what happens if you play too much chess. You end up with a chandelier on your shoulder, and black and white squares all over you. Enormously detailed coverage here. What I would recommend you did, if you had several of the magazines, is choose a game you like, maybe because it's an opening you play over it, and then compare it with the others and see what you think. And you may get different perspectives or different variations. And some of them you might think, well, I didn't want to know that, or they've just gone rambling on and it's not very interesting. So, you know, you're your own boss, aren't you? So pass on to something that you do like. But as my old boss used to say, do not lose your momentum. Here's an interview. Bruce Pandolfini. Bruce has come in for a little bit of criticism over the years. I rather like his stuff, but not everybody does. But no, I think he's pretty cool. I do think he's pretty cool. His book, Chess Weapons, it's purple if you see it in a bookshelf. Rip it out. I really rate that. Here is the ever-smiling Mr. Agard. There he is. British champion, some years back. Lives in Scotland. No longer registered for Scotland. 2007 British champion. I couldn't call, and co-founder of the #1 chess publishing house, Quality Chess. Yes, they certainly produce some pretty stern-looking chess books. As the saying goes, and he will not mind my saying this, there are no flies on him. Here we come to a section of the magazine which is unique. I've compared it with other ones, but they don't. This is the national and regional American section. The US Junior Championship in where better, St. Louis. They give the cross table, photograph of the champions, smiling. Boys and the girls and the boys. Some annotated games. Quite a few. A huge Endgame Alphabet. Mr. Alex Fishbein. He's looking at the game between Alekhine and Saliflor. Yeah, have to look at something there. You show a position, or a structure, a skeleton, beloved of Troitsky. Yes, some curling chessmen I mentioned before. So if you want to have fancy pieces, or other pieces with fancy designs on them, you know where to go. I quite like them as decoration, but I wouldn't want to play with them competitively. Prey When Prey Turns into a Hunter by David Brodsky. He looks very pained, poor man, but to me, it may be he was just about to play some important championship decider. All they could do is, as I said before, seldom do people, if ever, say, do you mind if I photograph you? Because if you did say that, they'd say, pardon? Here is the man who's become famous, Hans Neumann. He's become famous for all the wrong reasons. Here is Mr. John Edwards, the computers man, the chess analyst. He also wrote Sacking the Citadel and a book about Chessbase, which I have to be honest, I couldn't follow any too well. Possibly because I know very little about Chessbase and also because I was quite nervous of doing anything wrong. Tournaments abroad, some results. Ottawa. Stavanger, Norway. Patterns and motifs worth remembering. Yes. The Gligerich Memorial. I don't think that Gligerich is dead. Some book reviews by Mr. Carsten Hansen. Where grandmasters advise young players a Q&A. A Q&A. A man called by Kasparov, labelled by Kasparov, a chess tourist. I don't think so. I do not think so. A McFarlane advert. Nothing new here. I don't think, apart from the ladies' book, United States Women's Chess Champions, 1937 to 2020. I got the one on the US Championship for the boys and the girls, but mostly the boys, some years back, and I didn't like it at all. I haven't seen this new one. I would assume that it's very, very much better. But even if it isn't, it's well worth looking at. Of course it is. And at the back, an advert for Fritz Trainer. There we are. Dealt with all three. I hope you got some fun out of that. I've been James Pratt. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience.